Hi, I'm Jeff with Shutterzone Media, and today I got some notes today. If you're new into real estate photography or just getting started, today we're going to be talking about the basics of what you need and some advanced equipment. So stay tuned, we're going to get into it. So if you're just getting into real estate photography, obviously the first thing you're going to need is a camera. Now, my suggestion is, well, not this camera. Get yourself a DSLR camera, mirrorless, or full frame sensor camera. Those are the cameras I would suggest using. Obviously, you got to start with the basics. We're going to start with a camera, and there's a few things that we want to start with. We want to get yourself either a DSLR camera or a mirrorless. Those are the two cameras I would suggest if you're first just getting into real estate photography. So besides the camera itself, you're going to need a wide angle lens. And depending on the lens of your camera, you're going to have to probably start at from anywhere from like an 8mm to a 10mm to a 15mm, and have something that's diverse that can, you can go wide and zoom in and zoom out. Another thing I would suggest getting right away is a high-speed SD card. If you're getting into video, that's where you're going to need this even more so. It's just to help you with your write speed, download speed, upload. So. Now I got a few other notes. Now obviously when you get into real estate photography, photography is going to be your basis, the starting point. So you're going to want to probably go on to the next level of doing video, whether it be drone video or drone photos. Then you have to get UAV certified, and then doing 360 tours as well. And as far as drones go, you could probably just get away with getting yourself a DJI Mini, or you can just get yourself a Autel Evo Nano. And obviously, if you're going to go upgrade from just doing photos, you're going to need a camera that can do at least 60 frames per second, either in 4K or 1080p. My suggestion is finding a camera that can at least do 4K and at least 60 frames, if not higher. So, and then if you want to do 360 tours, you can get one of these bad boys. It's just a Insta360 1X, or you can get a Theta V as well. And that would be my suggestion as far as getting like a 360 camera, just to start with. And then you can upgrade to the advanced, which I'll get into later. And if you are going to get a drone, which I absolutely suggest getting a drone if you want to do video or if you want to get into photos, aerial photos, which obviously you have to get UAV certified as well. Getting UAV certified just means you have to get tested, FAA approved. That just allows you to legally fly your drone. If you are going to get certified, go to Remote Pilot 101. They'll set you up. They have videos that will go through all the training. So then when you go to take the test at one of the testing centers at the FAA center, whether it be at an airport or whatnot, then you'll have all the knowledge you need, and you'll be all set to get UAV certified. So, okay, so for my advanced setup and for the tools that I use, now these are the tools that work best for me. What works for me may be different for what works for you. So I just want to go through what I use and explain why I've settled on these as my basis for tools from when I'm doing real estate photography. So now, and I have different reasons for each one of these. Now, obviously, I don't have it right here because I'm recording on it right here. Is my full frame sensor, which is my Canon R6. It just gives a clean look. I also use a L series lens, which gives takes away from the bowing from the side of the edge of the camera when you go wide. It's got that clean and flat look. Also, when I'm recording a real estate agent outside, sometimes I'm using a UV filter because that allows for me to give that depth of field in the background, allows my f-stop to come down. So if you're new into real estate photography, look into filters, because I avoided using filters for the longest time. Once you understand how filters actually work, I think you'll get you'll grow a love for filters and how to use them and when to use them. So another big filter that I like to use is Polarizer Filters. I have that on my R6 as well. Typically if I'm doing video and especially photos, that allows for that bouncing light that's coming off the countertops or the floors. You can turn that polarizer filter and you can just eliminate all that glare, and it's almost like magic. So polarizer filters are absolutely wonders. I also have a variable filter. A variable filter will allow me to control how much light is coming in or out. You can get these fairly cheap. I wouldn't go too cheap because sometimes it gives it a little bit of like a blur effect. So if you can, you know, try to get at least a middle of the road variable filter if you need to. Now on my video shoots, I use wide lenses. Typically when I'm using the R series, I'm using at least a 15 to 35. If I am using I actually use a GH5 as well, but I also have an adapter on there as well, the Metabones. So I use the Canon lens, and the Metabones usually allows for more light to come in. So I'm using a 10 to 18 millimeter lens. And then when I'm using, when I'm doing my cinematic shots, I use like a tighter lens. So my suggestion is, if you can, you know, I don't have it in front of me here, but I also have what's called the Nifty 50. That's what I'm using this small little filter for, with a variable filter. If I'm shooting anything outside, that's when I use that variable filter. But that's what I'm also using to get those like cinematic shots of like the fireplace, or maybe it's the lantern or something in the middle of the room, as far as like the middle of like a table, just to kind of give it that extra pop. When you're watching that video, it just makes them go, whoa, okay. So it's a little added extra to the video that I think that does wonders. So my suggestion is, if you don't have a Nifty 50, and if you're working kind of like what I work with the R5, I also have a 24 to 105. I don't necessarily pop it in all the way to 105 millimeter. I'm usually around like 50 to 70. And then I can get some really great cinematic shots with this as well. So lenses are very important, especially when you're working with video. If you're getting into the field and you've been doing this for a while, have two cameras, because if you're shooting, you know, 3-4 photo shoots a day, and you know, it doesn't have to be the best backup camera, but what happens if your camera breaks? What are you going to do? You're going to rush to get to a store to try to buy one, get one from Amazon. You got to wait a few days. You never know. Always have that backup camera is my suggestion. So if you get into a pinch and you run into trouble, you have that other camera to work with. I always have two cameras on me at all times. I know it's easy to just say, buy two cameras. That's why I say, when you kind of get into the field a little bit longer, or been into the field a little bit longer, then you can get your second camera. So also, I work with the bigger Matterport camera when doing some of the bigger homes. Now, some realtors like this and love this and want this, and it does probably better measurements throughout the house if you're doing a floor plan. But if you're pinched for time, the realtor needs to get in and out, and maybe it's just a 1,500 square foot house. It's not a mansion. It's not a, you know, the glorious, you know, home that it needs to be. You just need to be able to show somebody out of state, you know, then you can get in and out. You can probably do a Matterport tour faster with your Insta360 or Theta V, or the other ones that work with Matterport as well. So, and I even know that cell phones are able to work with it now too, but this is probably the best way I would suggest. If this is your bread and butter and you're asking to be doing drone work, don't get yourself a DJI Mini. DJI Minis are great, but especially myself, I'm living in Wisconsin, or if you're in like, you know, windy Chicago or wherever you may be, you get that windy day, you can't fly. So you just lost out on your capability of being able to fly that day. You're not happy, the client's not happy. So I've got, you know, the Autel Evo 2. I know the Phantom series do very well. The Mavic 3. I think 2 and 3 do a really good job in the wind. So if you're looking to get yourself a drone that's gonna handle the wind, and you don't have to worry about the wind taking your drone off, yeah, that would be my suggestion, is the Autel Evo. Another one that I suggest using, and in fact, I'm one of those guys, I always have two drones. In fact, I own 3, but if you're getting into this, again, if you can afford it, get yourself 2 drones. And I have 2 different drones that do 2 different things completely. I have the Autel that I use for photos. I have a filter on there. It's got a bigger sensor size. This does up to 6K. I usually do up to 4K. Then I down compress into 1080p, shooting at 60 frames. But if I'm doing photos, I put that filter on, I put it in AEB mode, and those photos come out just looking great. The other reason I have another drone is obviously for having a backup if this one fails. I have the Skydio 2. It still does a great job with photos. The only problem with the photos with the Skydio is one image. It can do a HDR single image, and our editors will still make it look phenomenal. But my suggestion is to get the Skydio for video, and I use it for video mainly because it's got the 6 cameras on it. So this drone itself has got camera, and it makes a bubble around itself. One thing I've learned when I was doing drone, if I'm doing that side motion around the house and all of a sudden you get that tree that gets in the way and it's gonna stop, or it doesn't, or if you don't see it and the drone doesn't see it and then you're gonna crash, well, you just got yourself a $2,000 investment that you gotta replace it with. Or do like what I do, get drone insurance. So, which our company that we work with, Shutter Zone Media, requires us to get drone insurance, business insurance. So that would be my suggestion. 2, if you're just getting into this, get those 2 things. Obviously get UAV certified, so you're not getting yourself a fine. You're also risking the realtor to get a fine, so it's up to a $10,000 fine if you're not flying legally. So make sure you get your Remote Pilot 107 license to fly legally. But yeah, the Autel and the Skydio 2 do a phenomenal job. Those are 2 drones I suggest getting. If you're not gonna get, these 2, my suggestion would be the Mavic Series 2 or 3, which is an amazing drone as well. If you're gonna be doing video, get yourself a gimbal. One of the gimbals that I use is a Weeble S. There's a lot of other ones out there, the Ronin. In fact, I may have to upgrade because this does struggle a little bit with my Canon R series because the lenses are a little bit heavier. It handles my GH5 just great. If you're planning on doing a lot of real estate videos, you're gonna wanna get yourself a gimbal, and the Weeble S is one that I highly suggest, especially if you're getting a camera that's on the lighter weight end, and the GH5 is a phenomenal camera still even to this day. Also, if you're going to be doing videos, you may run into a real estate agent that wants to be on camera. You want to get yourself a lavalier mic. In fact, I have 2 because I have run into a few instances where 2 realtors have wanted to be on camera talking at the same time. And these are not wireless, these are wired. You do have to match up the audio in post, but you just do a little clap to match that peak and you're good to go. But this is the DR10L. This is a Tascam. So again, that's the DR-10L Tascam, and this would be, I strongly suggest this. It can record a high and low track, so if they get real loud, then you can take from that other audio track so you're not peaking. So highly suggest this. Another little tip I will give you, if you have a GoPro, these are great when you're doing videos, especially, for example, you can put this on a tripod and get yourself a little egg timer, put it on the back of the house and just let it run for about 15-20 minutes, and you can get that time lapse of like the clouds going by. Realtors will love it. It's a really cool effect. So a little suggestion is, if you got like yourself a GoPro, probably 7 or higher as far as the look. All right, moving on to some other things that I use. Some of this stuff goes beyond just using the equipment that I use. Fitted slippers, the ones that actually feel like shoes. If you can get a pair of these, I'm telling you, if you go into multiple homes in a day, if you're like me and I'm constantly taking off my shoes, I'm starting to get plantar fasciitis, and I'm telling you, if you get slippers that give you some support, after many weeks and months of doing real estate photography, your feet are gonna hurt. So my suggestion is get yourself a good pair of slippers that have some support. We're talking about feet. Get yourself a pair of boots to have in your vehicle at all times, because if it rains or it's in mud season or you go to a farm and the next thing you know, you have to be in the middle of like dirt, have yourself a pair of boots at all times. That way you're not putting your nice tennies and having to walk into an area that you may be upset that you didn't have a pair of these on hand at all times. When I'm outside, especially when I get into summer and we get into late summer, bugs, they get bad. I always have bug spray on me. I also keep some sunscreen lotion on me for those hot days. So that's another thing I would suggest. And going a little bit deeper and even maybe in more advanced, besides all the equipment that I was just talking about and the shoes and the slippers, you know, if it rains, you should have yourself an umbrella. Not only just for yourself, but I also have one for my equipment as well. So this is an attachment umbrella for your tripod. Clips right onto the tripod, goes right over the camera. So this would be another suggestion of mine is, again, if you're doing this day in and day out, there's gonna be days that it's going to rain. So yeah, having the attachment to your tripod has come in handy many times in either snow and or rain. So especially in the spring, this has come in handy for me. Besides the umbrellas, you know, for your equipment, sometimes it's easier just to have a rain jacket. So my suggestion is also have a rain jacket in your vehicle. If you can, just have yourself a little bin with all the extra stuff that you may need. This may seem like a lot, but this stuff all compacts pretty well. Which also reminds me, you should get a weather app if you can. Get yourself a radar app. My radar app is the one that I use. I'm constantly on that thing and I'm looking at it, and I can almost predict exactly where rain's gonna be. Cleaning cloths, I always have a braid of these, a ton of them. So, you know, clean, and I always have an extra backup pair here as well. So definitely some cleaning cloths. You want to keep those lenses clean. At the beginning of every shoot, I'm constantly looking at every one of my lenses and making sure that dust is off. So just making sure you don't get any weird dust particles in your shots, because that's just going to ruin your shot. Another thing to think about is when you get home, and especially if you're working with editors and you're not, you know, editing these yourself, you got to upload. Check into your editing or check into your internet speed. A lot of companies like to sell you on their download speed, but you want to look into their upload speed, because they may have terrific download speed, but you're looking at 5 megabytes for an upload. You know, 50 to 100 megabytes, you know, is bare minimal for me when I'm doing my uploads, because it'd be hours sometimes before I can get all my footage up. So if you can, make sure you have great upload speed in order to get your footage and your videos up. Another thing, besides this gimbal, you know, you can start getting in the reels, and a lot of the reels that I do right from my phone. And so you can do some simple reels. It's a quick upgrade for a realtor. Get yourself a cheap little gimbal for your phone. Also for your Matterport, when you're doing the 3D walkthroughs. I still get phone calls coming in, and a lot of times I'm using my phone. I suggest getting a separate, you know, tablet, so you can do your Matterports with a separate tablet, so you can utilize your phone, or maybe just want to listen to music or whatever it may be. But, you know, I would say get a tablet for your 360 camera as well. A lot of guys that I work with may think this is goofy, but I know a lot of people in the real estate industry wear a UAV certified vest. I would suggest doing so if you're going to be doing a lot of flying of your drone. This just lets people know, hey, leave me alone. I'm not just flying and spying. I'm actually flying legit. I'm out here doing a job. Sometimes people want to come out and they want to talk to me about how high it can go or how long the batteries last. It's usually the questions I get. So when I have this, I look a little bit more official and professional, and usually people leave me alone. Once in a while you get people that, you know, come out of the house and they're upset that you're flying near their house. So this gives you a little bit more of that professionalism. A lot of times, more than not, people just leave you alone. And that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm sure I have other tips and tricks, but I want to hear from you. Are you a real estate photographer that's been doing this a long time? What do you do that makes your job easier? What's some of the things that you've kind of learned in the field as you've done this that made your job easier? Obviously, if I can get in and out faster, you know, the realtor doesn't have to sit there and waste their time, and you're able to take on more jobs because you're more efficient. I hope you guys learned something today with some of the tips and tricks that I shared with you. If you have any tricks and tips yourself, I'd love to hear your feedback. So Feel free to comment below if you have any questions and or comments or anything you want to add to what I've shared with you today. So I may do another one of these in the future, but feel free to check out our videos. We do weekly videos. I'm Jeff with Shutter Zone Media. We'll see you next week.